The Chronicles of Narnia are, in a way, this story of this recovery of adventure, this recovery of agency. And so what we discover is that just within Christianity, the more we recognize the power and glory of God, at the same time we recognize the power and glory of each individual person. Now, the Chronicles of Narnia were written at the height of Lewis's fame in 1949. Interestingly, it was in 1947 that he was on the cover of Time magazine in the United States. Now, he purposely chose the genre of the fairy tale, right? It's interesting, even when he talks about writing Narnia, writing the Chronicles, he said he began young with an image of a fawn holding an umbrella, of a witch in a sleigh, of these sorts of images, and he wanted to write a story about them. And then he said as he started writing them, this great lion came bounding into the story. And then he said, that was kind of the poet, but then he said the man, as an author, he began to think, wait a second, he could use this story to address themes of Christianity. And he thought maybe he could smuggle in Christianity into fairy tales. So he also liked the idea of fairy tales because he thinks that fairy tales, he wrote, were kind of somewhat firm and rigid. In fairy tales, there are good characters and bad characters, right? There is a conflict between good and evil. Again, our actions matter. So what Lewis wants to do then is create an atmosphere within these stories. Lewis was a Renaissance and medieval literature scholar, and he wrote on Edmund Spenser's The Faerie Queene. And when he said what united all those stories, he said, well, ultimately it was the land of fairy. And in many ways, the Chronicles of Narnia, what unites them? It's the land of Narnia. But it's never the land of Narnia alone. It's the land of Narnia and the person and the character of Aslan. And what I think a way of understanding why the Chronicles of Narnia, I think, have this power and what Lewis wanted them to do in his readers, is this idea that what would be the atmosphere if Christianity were true? Right? What would be the atmosphere in which we lived if we genuinely believed the truths of the faith and felt them, absorbed them, right, with our heads and our hearts? Right? And that's really, in a way, what Narnia is. Right? Narnia, in a way, is Christianity, and Aslan is Christ. I'm going to say a word more about that because he does make some qualifications there. But so what Lewis felt is, for whatever reason, many of us, and certainly himself, when he encountered Christianity, he didn't encounter any thrilling, adventurous, wonderful adventure. Instead, he felt somewhat alienated and isolated from his experience of faith as a child in church. And he thinks that many children do this and many adults. So in a letter about the Chronicles of Narnia, he writes this: suppose that by casting all of these things into an imaginary world, stripping them of their stained glass and Sunday school associations, one could make them for the first time appear in their real potency. Right? It's like the Creed is the most thrilling story we could ever imagine. We were lost and trapped in sin, and God has rescued us. Right? He's rescued us and sent his very Spirit into the world so that we now can live with the very Spirit of God. This is a thrilling adventure. And yet, for some reason, people don't always experience it. What would it mean to live in a world in which Christianity were true? It would be an adventurous, noble, exhilarating, dangerous, and joyful world. It would be the world of Narnia.